Iraq, and a few other countries, and they had the opportunity to live in Yerushalayim. They chose not to. Whether it was if they came before 48 or after 48, they chose not to, and most of them chose to live in Tel Aviv and in the immediate suburbs of Tel Aviv. They wanted to be part of the new nation. They had ancestral homes. They had, places to go to, but they chose completely the opposite. We need to be part of the new country. We need to flourish with the country as the country is flourishing. And that's a very, very important point, because people till today, especially in our community, they only realize that the entire country has the same type of kedusha, and that living anywhere in the country is equally important. And these Hachamim saw, it was even more important in their day to live away from Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim already has its thing going for it. We need to help the rest of the country build itself up, and those were the type of leaders that we had. And I wish I brought up that point, because I think it was, very, very important. We see Hacham Nefel Haron Ben Shimon, when he retired from his position as chief rabbi in Cairo in 21, he moved to Tel Aviv. We had Rabbi Shahrabani, he was a very important rabbi in Baghdad. He was one of the main students of the Ben Ish Hai. And when he moved to Ramat Gan, and he even composed his Munim for Yom HaAsmaut. So and there were a number of others like these two. And that's an important thing to mention to people. What else did I leave out that I really wanted to bring up? There were more little pieces from SS and his Nibra, but nothing crucial. I think I brought up all the main points. I wanted to bring up, like we talked about Libya, I wanted to show excerpts from what they were actually doing in Libya in 1949, how they decided to add things to the prayers, and how they put down to say the entire Hallel, which would go hand in hand with what Rabbi
someone's got a mute there.
Does and others. Say that again, Dave.
There's noise in the background. Someone's got to mute it.
I don't know who it is.
Okay.
Must be Barry.
All right, continue.
Everybody was on mute. Everybody was muted, so it was me.
You. I don't really have much else to continue on those points, unless somebody has a specific question about Israel and Sepharadim and Yom HaAsmaut and things like that. The other thing there were things obviously that I didn't touch upon at all. Whether to say Hallel, not to say Hallel, except when I was asked about it in the end, I really didn't. I tried to avoid it, because that wasn't really the focus of my lesson. My lesson was based upon everything that we've seen. How would you even think not to say Hallel? How is not saying Hallel even an option? The only other thing we can bring up is the question of if we should add Al HaNisim to the Amidah, if we should add special Torah reading, if we should add a special Haftarah, how we should lengthen the prayers, all different types of things like that. A lot of people hear lengthening prayers and they get very turned off. They don't want that. People want to shorten prayers at times. Me, I see Yom HaAsmaut is a very, very, not only is it prophetic, but we're extremely, extremely blessed to have had this zechut, to have, the land of Israel, the state of Israel, and be able, to say extra prayers and thank God for it. So me, last night, I said Hallel without beracha as part of Arbit. This morning, again, full Hallel. I don't say a beracha, but I said the full Hallel. I read a piece of the Torah. I read a piece of the Nevi'im. I do these things. I add Al HaNisim. I have 3 different Al HaNisims that I like, and for Arbit I use one, for Shahrit another one, and for Minha a different one. That's what I like to do. It makes me feel comfortable. I feel, that's the least I can do in, showing my thanks to God, especially living outside of Eretz Israel, regular work day. What can I do to express my gratitude? So to me, those are important points. I don't know if everybody, really cares about that, but to me, it's something important. That's another reason I left that out on the lesson that I gave. But I'd like to hear your comments, your questions, anything along those lines. So everybody unmute yourself, I guess, and say what you want to say. Come on, Michael Safdie, talk.
Where do you where do you get the text for those Al Nisim that you said?
Well, there
Different
are
Sidurim,
certain Sidurim, especially made for Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim, and generally that's where you find them.
Right.
You have some that come from World Zionist Organization, some that are put out by Koren, some that are put out by individual rabbis, but they're out there. And each year there are more of these type of Sidurim or Mahzurim, as they call them, for Yom HaAtzmaut on the market. I only have 2 or 3 of them, but by now there's at least 6 or 7 of them that I'm aware of.
And what about the Torah and the Nevi'im that you read?
Well, that's also based upon the different Hachamim and their suggestions over the course of the years.
Right.
So I pick whatever I'm in the mood for that day. Obviously, I'm not reading, I'm not going to read a piece from, Shemot and from Vayikra and from Devarim. I'll pick, okay, this guy's opinion this year, I'll do this year. Next year, maybe I'll do different kinds, depending on my feeling, that morning when I get up to it. As far as the Haftarah, they're all pretty much in agreement as to what the Haftarah should be.
Interesting. What is that Haftarah?
What is that Haftarah? I will show you the Haftarah right now. Let's see. Haftarah. Here we go. Here we go. It's from Yeshaya, Perek Yod, and it starts Od Hayom Benob Le'amod. Okay? It's a very, very beautiful Haftarah. Now, there was something interesting today that on one of our chats, Ezra, you may have seen it, that Yossi Daya brought up. Chacham Yom Tov Yedid, his Perush on Tehillim, which we're aware of, his Perush on Mizmorim, Kof Yod Zayin and Kof Yod Het, are all about the miracle of recapturing Eretz Yisrael in our modern day and how we're supposed to react and act vis-a-vis the new modern state. Really beautiful words, very, very, refreshing to see when you think about how people tell you, oh, we don't care about Israel. He's showing you we have to care about Israel. We have to thank Hashem for it. And everything that goes on nowadays, it's a modern miracle. So it's a really, really nice pirush. Maybe we'll read it together one day. That's something very interesting as well. Who else? Ezra's laughing his head off over there. I don't know how good this is. Okay, Ezra, come on, share with us. Ralph, Barry, somebody say something.
So why can't SCA or any organization just teach the common folk what to do? Because I feel like it's every year.
Explain.
Everyone's always, what do we do? What do we do? I don't know, like the West Deal chat. People were asking all night last night, what do we do tomorrow? Do we say Hallel? Someone says yes, someone says no.
So,
can someone ask Rabbi Kassin?
So,
and Rabbi Kassin finally said, say Chatzi Hallel.
I know, I understand that. So, first let me, how'd you switch positions all of a sudden?
I don't know.
Okay.
Go to the next screen. I don't know. They move around.
They move around?
They do.
Okay.
He muted his video, and that's why.
Say that again?
I think he turned off his video and he changed. I don't know. That's what happened.
Okay. Yeah, Ezra, you're holding up the Tehillim book, and what do you want to say?
Unmute.
Who?
Ezra.
How do I do that?
Yeah, Ezra will be able to do it himself.
See, that's what I'm waiting to find out. How do you do these things?
I go to the top right corner and I unmute.
Top right corner.
I'm unmuted.
No, I have no such options on my screen.
As the host, David, doesn't he have the option to unmute them?
Not when you mute microphone when joining a meeting. No, I don't have mute on everybody. You guys all did it yourself. That's why. Everyone is unmuted.
I don't know, but whatever. There's no
Ezra,
such problem.
you guys all
They-
muted yourself. I didn't do mute for everybody. There's a way
Right.
to do mute everybody or not. I didn't do that.
Okay. In any case, I don't see whatever button Ezra is referring to, whether they did it or not. So yes, Ezra, you could open up and take a look at Kofiyot Zayin and Kofiyot Het. All right, and I guess you could share it with everybody since you know how. So back to Ralph Nasser. Ralph's asked.
I don't know how to do physically, only it's digital.
Oh, okay. So Ralph, the problem is that we don't have a unified community. We're a bunch of people that are related to each other and connected to each other, but we're not really a community. And we don't have, if you want to call it, rabbinic leadership that works together. Okay? And each guy is afraid to take a stance, especially on something that they may deem controversial. And that's the problem here. Nobody's willing to stand up and say, this is Yom HaAtzmaut, it's a real holiday, and we must celebrate it. And that's why nobody wants to tell you what to do. This meeting now has unlimited minutes.
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
That's nice. So the problem, so let's take you saying that Rabbi Soli Kassin told you to do Hasi Hallel, right?
Correct.
Okay, so basically he said so to protect himself.
And he said it.
Because
And he
the
said it this
letter-
morning, and people were asking from last night. Now, I don't know if he didn't see his WhatsApp. I'm guessing he might have been pressured to just say something.
Right. He didn't know what to say. So obviously somebody pointed out to him that the letter signed by his grandfather and other rabbis at the time back in 87 said on the top line, half Hallel. So he went with that. That way, I'm just telling you to do what my grandfather said. He's protected, or his great-grandfather rather. Okay? So he is then protected. He's following what Chief Rabbi Dr. Jacob S. Kassin said to do, half Hallel. There's no beracha, obviously, in our community on half Hallel. If Al Hadef was sitting here with us, he'd be arguing, that the Turks in Seattle do beracha on half Hallel, but we don't really care about that right now. And that's it. So he's saved. If he told you to do full Hallel, he puts himself in a predicament of how does he rationalize that. And if we're doing full Hallel, how are we doing full Hallel without beracha? So he doesn't know, he wouldn't know where to turn with that. He also doesn't have anybody to back him up. He's in Jersey. In Jersey, he has nobody on his side the way I see it, okay? And he's not sure what side that is. If he's in Brooklyn, who's going to tell him to do full Hallel? It's probably only going to be Alav Shalom Rabbi Lieberman, or nowadays Rabbi Shammah, okay? So who's he going to side with? If he sides with half Hallel here in Brooklyn, in Shari Sion, I don't even know if they do that anymore.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. In a regular minyan, that's not coronavirus time, there's arguments in shuls.
There's arguments because we have no real leadership.
But why can't each shul make a decision?
Because it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It boils down to each minyan making a decision.
Correct.
And that's a problem. If each minyan is making a decision, then it's not a decision.
No, I agree, but what I'm saying is
It's whoever
such
is
an important,
stronger
it's
or
such an
has
important
more
day.
financial pull or whoever has a louder voice.
Like to us, it's such an important day. Like, they made this carnival in Jersey today. It took up the whole day. It was beautiful. But they realized the importance of the day, and we should be playing music, and we should be partying, and we should be dancing in the street, but we shouldn't be saying Hallel. It's like contradictory.
It is, but again, they're afraid. You heard that towards the end of the class, I read that one paragraph from the 2-page letter, okay, about the guy who's telling you it shouldn't be a day of Hallel, it should be a day of mourning. That's the attitude that we're dealing with. That's what we're up against. And one main line in there is that the Hachamim have spoken out very harshly against making changes to prayer. People hear that and all of a sudden they get scared. How could we do something different? I spoke earlier before you got in, or maybe you were here already. I started speaking about the Al-Hanisim issue on Yom HaAsmaut. Most people will tell you there's no way you could add Al-Hanisim. That's 1,000,000% hifsek in your Amidah. You cannot do it. It's no good. Basically your Amidah is completely invalid. They're not willing to listen. They're not willing. They've been trained to think that everything is asur, everything is a hifsek, everything is haram, everything's berachah battala. This is the training that they have. This is the way they've been brainwashed, in my opinion.
But then if you go to the SCA rabbis, aren't they all on kind of the same page?
All right, so David's going to turn off the recording so we can talk about them.
Okay.
Go ahead, ask the question. Somebody?
So, Joey, how come if in the 1950s, when Rabbi Kasson was chief rabbi, didn't he set the law of what we should all be doing in the community? Why would everyone be doing it, differently if we have a custom or a minhag from then?
So, it's very hard to call it a custom or minhag. Okay, so when something is new, it's not a custom, it's not a minhag. Okay,
We had a chief rabbi.
It's a new scenario.
And
Let me explain to you. You can't compare the Syrian community of Brooklyn of 1950 to the same one in 2020. In 70 years, okay, we're talking about the equal amount of time almost to the state of Israel being 72 years old. And within this time frame, our community has changed drastically. We went basically from a one main synagogue community. Yeah, we had a couple of other, synagogues here and there. Let's say we're a total of 5 synagogues, okay? With how many people praying in Minyan on a daily basis? Maybe all together with all 5 synagogues, I think if we're exaggerating, we're saying 200 people. Now we're in 2020, the community has changed in many ways. It has vastly expanded. We don't have a chief rabbi anymore. We have people that came from all different types of backgrounds and schoolings. We're talking about both laymen as well as rabbis. And we have synagogues, minimum of 60 in Brooklyn alone, I would say. Okay, where there are minyanim, and we have thousands of people praying in minyanim on a daily basis. So you can't compare the two. Once you remove the factor of the prayer is no longer centralized, and we have no chief, that's it. Ish hayashar bi'aynav ya'aseh. It's a free-for-all. Everybody does what they want. And we now live in a world where each person is looking for that, kabod. Maybe not that they're looking for it, but the people, like Ralph said before, people are sheep and they're looking for their leader. And that's why each guy nowadays you see, oh, this is my rabbi, and this is my shul, this is my rabbi, and my rabbi said this, and your rabbi said that, my rabbi is better than yours, my daddy is bigger than yours, my daddy could punch your daddy out. That's what we're looking at nowadays. We're not looking at kabod in the sense of exalting the Torah and giving kabod to the Torah and to the ideas of the Torah, but who's better, me or you? And that's the problem over here. So if one rabbi is going to say Hallel, the other rabbi has to say not to say Hallel. If one's going to say do half Hallel, the other one says full Hallel. One says do after Amidah, one says after do it after, what do you call it, Titkabbal. The other one's going to say do after Alinu Shabeah. And one's going to say not to do it at all. So all of a sudden you're not dealing with a unified framework. And this takes us back to our original problem. And that's why if we look at the way our Hachamim were previously, when they were in fact living in different countries, in different lands, in different cities, okay, at that point they were unified.
Shul, right? I just want to make sure.
Say that?
You did say the word shul just now.
I said it, quoting the people, yes. Absolutely, I said it, because that's the way they talk. Because these ideas are foreign to us. People that talk about Knesset don't talk like this. Okay, and they talk about rabbis, they talk about hachamim. Okay, Jews come from a certain mindset, and a non-Sephardic mindset, and this is something else I didn't bring up Sunday night, is the Hida, and I've brought this up in many of our classes in the past, talks time and again about the concept of Sepharadim versus Ashkenazim. Sepharadim coming, and how constantly they were knocking heads. And the Hida himself had a hard time with it, obviously, because his mother was Ashkenaziyah. But he was brought up more by his father's side of the family. Not that his mother didn't raise him, okay, but he saw himself as a Zulai. He is a Sephardi. So he grew up with the Hesed. The Gibura side didn't exist for him. And even when he traveled the world, and he went throughout the world, and he went, all over Europe, he even writes certain things about the Ashkenazim that he met, and how they were always trying to be bullying and being, overpowering and overbearing. It's a different mindset, it's a different mentality, it's a different, modus operandi than Sepharadim. And when it comes to, we're no longer looking at the Hachamim that were living in different countries, but they all had the same worldview when it comes to Eretz Israel. And they were all, talking about how it's a great zechut to be there. They talked about, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this the other night, how you may look at certain people, may look at, the soldiers and the generals, in the army, and you look at them, this guy doesn't eat kosher, this guy doesn't make berachot, this guy is mechalel Shabbat, but at the same time, the guy is putting his life on the line 24/7 to save Jewish people in the Jewish homeland. And we have writings of Hachamim, okay, from before the state was created, and they knew this was going on, and they had a guy like this is a greater Sadiq and will outweigh the greatest of Hachamim on any scale in Shammai. And you have to respect this person, and you cannot look down on such a person, because you don't know what kind of zechuyot this guy has because of what he's doing. And nobody looked at him and said, oh, he's bad. Or what about the letters that just came out just a couple of days ago that were uncovered from a Dayan from Morocco, this Rabbi Yahya Harosh, okay? Not Harouche like most Moroccans, but this is Harosh. It's a different family. And he's calling, these Zionistic leaders, whether we're talking about Herzl or Ben Gurion or Weizmann, he's calling them Sadiqim, and anybody who speaks out against them is going to have to pay the highest price for Lashon Hara and Shamayim, because these people did a great thing for Am Yisrael. Okay, obviously he wasn't aware of everything that was going on, but in the overall picture, he saw it as they are doing something that we need. And somebody else I was speaking to today, he doesn't want his name mentioned, was telling me, you're right, we don't know. We don't know how and why God made things evolve through certain people. But regardless, it happened, and we have to, regard the benefit of it, and there has to be a certain hakarat hatov, because if they did it, means Hashem used them as his vehicle to make such a thing happen. And it's very, very important. We don't know how and why certain things happen. We're not always thrilled with it. But the bottom line is, look where we are today. Where is Am Yisrael today? Imagine we didn't have a Jewish state. Imagine we had no Jewish homeland. We didn't have an army. We didn't have the world cloud that we have today. They'd be still murdering us left and right if there were still any Jews left in the world. Okay? If we're living in New York City, the city with the greatest Jewish community outside of Eretz Israel, and we have a mayor going out and disparaging the Jewish community, okay, while he's, bending over backwards to help the Muslims. So what's going on over here? We need Eretz Israel. It's a big beracha to us. That's the way I see it. And to not say Hallel on such a day, and to not give recognition to this state that we all go running to and we sing its praises when we want to, but when it comes a time that there's a set time set by the chief rabbinate of Israel as well as the Knesset. So we have the lay leaders and the rabbinic leaders working together to set a time, to thank God, okay? How can we not? Really, it behooves me. It makes no sense.
But has it been like a change in the community? Like the earlier years, they all said Hallel and things like this, and then
So again, there were very
everyone
few
going in.
people, David, praying in a minyan to even know about praying Hallel or not saying Hallel. That's why in the community we had set, and this was not only from the 50s, but even later on in the 60s and in the 70s and in the 80s and still till now, that on the Shabbat prior to Yom HaAtzmaut, let's say in Sha'ar Zion, as well as other synagogues, okay, that on that Shabbat, there would be a special kiddush, okay, to let the people know Yom HaAtzmaut is coming. We're making a special kiddush. We're serving blue and white cookies. We're hanging up flags, because otherwise, if Yom HaAtzmaut is falling out on Tuesday, who's coming and who's celebrating? They're not. Everybody's praying at home 20 minutes, running off to work. So the way we look at Yom HaAtzmaut and Hallel today is different than the way it was looked at then. But that we still have these Yom HaAtzmaut celebrations, and we've all been to them on the Shabbat prior to Yom HaAtzmaut in our different various synagogues. We know it exists. We've all partaken, of some portion of that Sa'udah, and we've sang Hatikvah afterwards all together, So we have this affinity for Medina Yisrael. It's bringing it all the way is what we need to do. Now, obviously, we're never bringing it all the way until we're actually living in Israel, but to the best of our ability in Hus La'aretz. That's what I think. Thank you, Mark. Joey Batesh, I see you here someplace.
I'm here. I'm listening.
All right.
Show
Let's go.
yourself.
More
Oh, your
questions. Yom
face. Come on,
HaAtzmaut.
Joe.
I'm sorry?
No, Joey Batesh has to show his face if he wants to partake of this meeting.
I'm
I
here.
want to see a Floridian.
Yeah,
Hayem 18.
Okay, any writings that you want to show us? Any documents that you have based on the state, or you always have something.
No, nothing that
I know you weren't.
nothing that really stands out. Nothing that I can easily get to right now either. I would have to actually find a way to figure out how I would even put it up here, because I see them very dark on the screen anyway. I don't know how well it would come out even if I pulled it out and showed it to you. I think this is a very, very important thing to think about, how we have many more people praying in Knesset now than we used in the past. In fact, I was telling my kids before that growing up, school, I went to Hayezer, and then went from Hayezer, switched to Flatbush. In Hayezer, we never heard of Yom HaShoah, never heard of Yom HaAtzmaut, never heard of these things. I got to Flatbush, like, what are these days? So, that being the case, if somebody in school didn't hear of these days, all the more so somebody who wasn't going to school and was just showing up, to Knesset maybe once a month, maybe even if it was every week, once a week. But the average person, and I'll say it again and again, the average person definitely did not go every day. And even till today, we know that the majority of people do not go to Knesset every day. Look at the sheer numbers that are there on Shabbat as opposed to other days of the week. We know there's so many more people on Shabbat than other times. And years ago, all the more so. So, yeah, obviously the people were very, very proud of Israel, and especially after the 6 Day War, once, they liberated Yerushalayim. But it's just something unbelievable. And to see that, how the Hachamim were really very, very pro-Israel in all its ways, and the concepts of being anti-Israel because of the non-religious government came from an outside mentality. It came from the mentality of Gibura, not from the mentality of Hesed. And this is something that people need to learn about. And this should apply to everything that we're dealing with, everything that we say and do. Any halacha, And we see it. If we look at all the writings of Rabbi Uziel, okay, you see the chesed, the great care and concern, for the people is in every halakha, every decision that he makes. You see it. You see it in his philosophical writings. You see it in his speeches. You see it. He has 2 books where he talks about strictly, it's all the laws involved with a orphan and with the family that has to take care of the orphan. He wrote 2 volumes on everything related to that, complex volumes, but you see the care and the concern for the individual. You don't find that elsewhere. And that's why till today, this is something that, as opposed to other works of Rabbi Uziel that people have forgotten about, this is something that's constantly quoted by all types of rabbis throughout the world over the course of the last 50 years. Nobody's forgotten these works because there's nothing else on the market like it. We've mentioned them before, but we'll mention again. There is an issue in halakha of bat na'avat hamardut, when you have a woman who is basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Think of domestic violence, but not violence over here, but she's being abused. She's being mentally abused to the point that she needs to get out of a marriage. And the woman really didn't have a way to get out of a marriage, especially if it was because of verbal abuse or humiliation and things like that. The Hachamim of Yerushalayim wrote to Hachem Nefeah Harun ben Shimon while he was still chief rabbi in Egypt and told him, listen, you're the only guy. You're the guy who understands people. You know that human touch. You have it. Please write a book about this so we can help these women. We here, the rabbis in Yerushalayim, we cannot do it. Our hands are tied. You could do it. And he wrote a book explaining all the halachot involved in this and how you could actually free a woman from an abusive marriage and get her out of it, in a dignified manner. And that became the guidebook for the rabbis of Yerushalayim for decades. This is something that the Hachamim have. You don't really find it, with the other world. And the other world today has become very, very rigid, whereas halakha is halakha. We have, Shulchan Aruch has 4 volumes. You can't deviate 1 iota from any of those volumes. Whereas our Hachamim, they had another volume. They had that 5th volume called Common Sense, where they dealt with actuality and with feeling. And all we're dealing with Eritrea. This is War of Independence, 1948. Most of our rabbis, or the elder rabbis, they all lived through it. 67, they lived through that too. 73, they lived through that. How can you come and deny a gift, a real gift that Borei Olam has given to us? Impossible. It's like telling Hashem, we don't want the Torah. Okay? He's holding it over your head. He's going to drop it on you. We don't want it. Take it away. This is a gift. This is the greatest gift that we could have ever dreamt of. Every Shabbat we sit on the floor and we cry. We have it. We're in the door already. A little longer and we're having the full Geulah. We just have to believe. We saw Rabbi Mordechai Atiyah, wrote, if we all got up and danced on that first 5th of Iyar 1948, like we should have, and thanked Hashem, the entire Geulah would have happened the spur of the moment. And it's funny, right after the class, Elliot Dweck, Victor's grandfather, Bobby's father, called me up. He says, Cham Atiyah was my uncle. And he lived here in New York for 1 year. He needed a break. He had to come, he had to take care of something. And he came to visit, and we ended up renting an apartment. He stayed on Bay Parkway 1968 for a whole year, but he came visiting before that. He was the greatest, and all he did, he loved Israel. He talked about Israel 24/7. In 1965, he got up in Shad Zion, and it was in the month of May. I'll never forget it. Elliot was telling me, he stood up. He was going to stand up from the podium and talk. He said, no, you're not all going to hear me from here. He walked to the middle of the dome. He stood up and he spoke, and he said, I want all of you, forget about going to Bradley this year. Don't go to Bradley. come to Yerushalayim. That's where you all belong. That's the place to be. He goes, until the day I die, Elliot was telling me, I'll never forget that speech. All of a sudden, everybody was in shock. How's this Hacham getting up and telling us all to pick up and leave, and go to Yerushalayim? But he was right. That is the place. That is our home. He said, make Yerushalayim, make Eretz Yisrael the place that you're happy with, and Hashem's going to be happy with you as well. Because that's the whole thing right there. So it was really, really nice when Elliot called me up right after the class to tell me about this. We don't realize what kind of giant Hachamim we had that really loved Eretz Yisrael. And we have to learn from them. That's what I think. What else you got?
Joey,
Hello, Jack.
how are you? What did Rabbi Yitzhak Nissim say in the community when he visited Sharet Zion? I one time heard that he came and he told everybody, you guys belong in Israel. Is that true?
I'm not familiar with Rabbi Yitzhak Nissim's visit to the community or what he said.
Hacham Yosef Raful said that a lot of these visitors, they come and they just kiss up and they all, friendly. And he says he came.
Rabbi Yitzhak Nissim was never a kiss up to anybody.
He said he found his own accommodations. I'm not staying by you or by him. I'm okay. And he came in Sharet Zion and he gave strong musar and said, you guys all belong in Israel. And he left. That was it. He gave them a harsh,
I could definitely, based upon what I know about him, I could definitely see that happening. Same way when in Israel, it was a big thing when he became the Rishon LeZion, and a couple of years later, I think the German chancellor was coming to make a peace deal with Israel, and part of the peace deal, he had to come and meet all the different political dignitaries, and the office of chief rabbi is a political office as well. And Rabbi Nissim said, there is no way I will meet with this man. There's no way I will look at him. No way I will shake his hand. He and all his people are a bunch of murderers, and it's never going to change. And I don't care what you do. You could try to fire me. You could try to throw me out of the country, but I will not change my position. He was very, very hardcore, Rabbi Yitzhak Nissim. He was unwavering.
Right.
When he said he was doing something, he did it. When he said he wasn't doing something, he didn't do it. There was no stopping him. So this German guy was in Israel for close to 2 weeks, and every day they would come to Rabbi Nissim, please. He goes, no, I'm not. Throw me out first. Keep him here. Give him the position of chief rabbi, and I'll go back to Germany. Because I will not.
Okay.
So yeah, I could based upon that being who he was, I could see him going to Sharet Zion and him going crazy on them.
You know anybody?
But on the same point, 1 second. On the same point, Chacham Azra Shayo, okay. In other words, the father of Rabbi Yosef Shayo that comes here nowadays, Chacham Azra Shayo, we have even a recording of him to Meyer Sef, and I've heard this recording because I have it in my house, and he told him, Meyer, you're my friend. But I know how much money you spend to go to deal every year, between renting the house and upkeep of the house and clothes and food and traffic back and forth. He goes, you could come with that money, and for a quarter of that money, you could come spend the entire summer, take off of work, come spend the entire summer in Yerushalayim with me, you and your entire family. Please come this year, please come this year. And he told them more than once, but we have at least one recording of it. So the rabbis, this is not a foreign idea to them. They did it time and again. And it wasn't just Rabbi Nissim or Rabbi Mordechai Atiyah or Rabbi Azra Shayo. Many of the Hachamim, would really beseech the people to come spend time in Eretz Israel in the hopes that they would finally move to Eretz Israel. What else, Jack? You want to say something else? You're muted. I don't hear you.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. I wanted to know if there's anybody who could give us information about that visit. Do you know anybody else who remembers it like?
Well, you're saying Chacham Yosef. Well, what else did he tell you about it?
I don't know. I would figure somebody like you would hear about it. Are there any old timers you think that we could talk? It's interesting. It's a very interesting story. You don't know?
Off the top of my head, no. Nobody that comes to mind whatsoever.
He was the chief rabbi in when? In the 60s, no?
60s.
60s. Uh-huh.
60s. 61 to 71 approximately.
Uh-huh. So what are we all doing in Brooklyn over here?
I go to work every day. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be quiet now.
You can do whatever you want. No problem. Go ahead. Somebody else. What's the next question about Israel? Nothing? No questions? When are we all moving? When are we taking the trip, at least?
Start with the summer.
Summer's too long. If I could get 5 days, I'll be happy.
I have a plane ticket on June 14th. Fadal.
Thank you.
Let's see what happens.
There is no plane. Next.
Yeah, I know. I know it's delayed. That was the plan.
Joey, how are we going to get our books over there? How are we going to get the books?
What books?
Your library. How are you going to get that whole library to Israel?
Get a lift.
If and when the time comes, it's getting there. Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry. When the time comes, it's getting there. You heard of a container?
You're right.
I'll be in the container with the books. Don't worry. Let's get to that. Let's have the zechut to be able to make it there.
Amen.
That's something tremendous. All right, so I was saying, I think you guys should look into Al Hanisim. I don't know if any of you have ever said Al Hanisim on Yom HaAtzmaut, and I really, really think you should look into it and do it on your own. You don't need to discuss it with anybody. You're adding hoda'ah. You're adding thanks to the Amidah. And that's the part of the Amidah that when we finally get up to it, we go flying through it. And most people try to, oh, you know what? Okay, I have 2 more pages to go. Let me just finish. I asked Borei Olam for wisdom. I asked him for good health. I asked him for money. I don't have to ask him. I said, Modim now, I don't have to ask him for anything else. But that's the time they have to thank him for everything. Okay? You cannot forget about thanking him. And people forget about thanking him. They just look at that. This is the final stretch. I'm taking it home, and zoom. People get from Modim till Oseh Shalom in less than a minute. And we all know what happens. Concentrate over there. It's a hard part to concentrate on, but if you realize that you're giving thanks and for all the good that Hashem does for us, just think about it right now. We're in terrible times, and we're breathing. We're actually breathing, and without a machine. And it's free oxygen that we're getting. We have a lot to be thankful for. Forget about all the other points in the Amidah that we're thanking him for. Forget about all the concepts over there, that are it's just unbelievable. So once a year, you throw in an extra Al Hanisim for Yom HaAtzmaut. It was made up by laymen. It's made up by Hachamim, made up by rabbis who looked into this. And yeah, Barry just typed that. We have a lot to be thankful for. We all lose track of that. We lose track of it from the moment we wake up. We get up, we say Modeh Ani, and then we forget about it, and we barely think about it again throughout the course of the day. And even when we say Modeh Ani, most time we forget about what we're saying. We're just saying it because it's words to say. But we have to be thankful and giving true thanks. Like this morning, before Baruch Shamar, I said, you know what? I'm going to say Hudud Adonai Kitov, like we say on Shabbat morning. And I went through the whole Hallel HaGadol, as it's called. There's so much to be thankful for. And I spent maybe 3.5 minutes just reading that, which usually you can zip through, in 40 seconds. Like, wow. Why we was flying through this? Because we have another 200 pages to go. But you know what? We have to stop. I think that's a big message for us praying at home every day. Where are we going? Get up a little earlier if we need to, if we need that extra time. But we got to do it. We really need to do it. It's so important. I've been, like some of you have heard from me already, I've been having much more kavanah praying at home. Will I even go back to Kines weekday mornings? I don't know. I may not. At least not in the beginning. I'm definitely not going to be rushing to go back.
I think I might agree with you, Joey.
I think a lot of people have been feeling this way.
Yeah, I have.
It's very hard
Not
to
going to get the breakfast, Joey. Come on.
I never went to the breakfast, and even now I don't eat breakfast. So what's the difference? Today I had breakfast, though. Yom HaAtzmaut, I had breakfast.
You can still pick up the breakfast on the walk to work.
Blue and white?
Nah. What was that?
Blue and white cookie today?
Blue and no. Better yet, Naomi made me blue and white pancakes. Special day.
Yeah, I don't think you can have that kavanah that you have in the house that you pray by yourself. When you go to shul and you see somebody's talking to you, somebody's walking
Right,
over
and
to
there's no, and you're praying home. There's no talking.
Right.
No talking.
Right.
No, having time right now is definitely a huge difference. Even if I go to the 7 o'clock minyan, the chazan is flying through it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm praying at home, I'm praying as fast as I can to get to work. Now there's no rush. You're sitting and you're enjoying your prayers. I have nothing to get to.
It's an hour, whatever it is.
Whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
But guys, but the sibur is still at the end of the day. I feel like you, but the sibur is very important. It's still very important to be connected.
100%. But you know what? Sometimes that sibur is a little bit,
Right.
You're walking around. There's guys on the phone. The guys are talking. The guys are speaking during Sefer Torah. Guys, So sometimes it's a little bit more.
More distracting.
Yeah, exactly. It's very distracting.
So let me comment on what Jack's saying, though. Yes, the sibur is important, and we know that Hachamim have talked about, the concept that when we're with the minyan, with the sibur, our tefillot are much more readily accepted. Okay. At the same time, though, if we walk away from the prayer, not feeling like we prayed, so what's Borei Olam accepting? So yes, I'm not telling people to stop going to Knis Ben Minyan. No, go. But sometimes if you get up that morning, you know what? No, I need to talk to Hashem today. I know I'm not going to be able to do it, when I go to Minyan. I know it's not going to happen for me because I know this guy generally is hesitant today, or this guy's going to be walking around, or I know this guy's going to come to me when I'm up to Az Yashir and stick his hand in my face because he wants $1. I can't do it today. I need to pray with a different mindset. What are you supposed to do then? Go there anyway? Or Borei Olam will see that you're praying, from your heart. I think Borei Olam is going to see that you're really praying from your heart. He's not, because if Minyan was mandatory, then it would have been listed in all the books of Halakha as being mandatory. Minyan is considered, something that's good advice, something that's recommended, something that's helpful, especially so for people who don't know how to read and pray properly. Okay, but if somebody knows how to, okay, and he's going to have mukavana, and we even have teshubot from different rabbis, some that we have touched upon in classes going back many, many years ago that we never really went through it in depth, but they actually talk about, let's say there's somebody who wants to pray, at Nis, okay, by himself, as opposed to praying to the Nes Minyan because the Nes Minyan doesn't fit his bill, or because he wants to pray Nes and there's no Nes Minyan in the city. Can he pray, B'Yahid? And they answer these things and they show you how you really can pray B'Yahid al Pi Halacha. It's okay. We had many, many cases throughout history where people didn't even live in areas where there were minyanim, and they would have to travel, a few times a year, let's say on certain holidays, to get to a town or a city or a village where there was a minyan, and they would go to that local synagogue or local makeshift minyan, and throughout the rest of the year, they were praying B'Yahid. And you see, in these early Sidurim, they had prayers for people to say in place of the Hasi Kaddish that I missed, in place of the Barechu that I missed, in place of the Kaddish Shalem that I missed, in place of the Kedusha that I missed, in place of the Kedusha of Minha that I missed, in place of each item, in case of Barechu of Arbit that I missed. And there are things to say for each one of these things, and for some reason now, our Sidurim don't have any of these things.
The Bet Oved has it, right?
But Oved definitely has it, yes.
Do you say it?
I say it at times, yes. Again, when I pray, Jack, it's very, very important that I pray, and my prayer is real. Not just, okay, let me say one more thing, or let me not. So some days I don't say it because I don't need to say it today. The way I'm praying, I know it's good. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel, you know what? Let me add it in. I need that extra, jump start. But that's me. I'm not telling you that's for everybody. Some people need to say it all the time, and some people may need to never say it. Because those things are not obligatory. Those are things that were added by Hachamim, seen as something good to make up for it. In some cases, done even so the person felt like they were not missing out. This guy that was living out in the village 200 miles away from the nearest minyan, and he didn't hear Kaddish or didn't answer Kaddish for 2 months at a time. Okay, give him something to say every day. That way he feels like he's connected. Because that's part of Beit Knesset. Okay? It's a kenes. It's a place of gathering and assembly where the people would gather and assemble and their minds and their thoughts would gather. So it's one of the, so Borei Olam and the Nevi'im talk about Beti Tefillah Yikareh Chol Ha'amim. But we as a people, we refer to it as Beit Knesset, not as Beit Tefillah. So it has two different concepts going on over here. Beit Tefillah, it's a house of prayer, and it's Beit Knesset, it's a house of gathering. And it's a gathering of people and gathering of minds. So again, there's a lot of things going on. It's not cut and dry. I don't know if you hear when I'm talking about the cut and dry, but there's nothing cut and dry in our Judaism. Our Judaism has that human touch to it, and we can never forget it. We're good? Ezra, what do you got to say, Ez?
Yeah, Ezra's been quiet.
Yeah, I know. He just chuckles every once in a while.
I would also say that the certain situation, the current situation, the fact that we are very humbled, the fact that people's businesses are affected, people's health is affected, people are not as powerful as it's like Kippur almost. You're put in a humble situation, and you have a better perspective about reality, and that is also helping us to focus. And that is what we strive to. We should be striving to when we study Torah and have prayers with Kavanah every day. But now we're in a situation where we have to think that way. And it's funny because everybody's saying they're happier all because of it. Everybody's in a happier state because they're more living in reality. This fantasy of ourselves and our own personal greatness is not existing. People are in a more normal level-headed state, and I think they're happier because of it.
Yeah, but
so naturally, I think our relationship to God is reflected.
Right. Let me tell you something. So I'm not in shul every single day, but I've always had this. When I stayed home and prayed, I felt it was totally more kavanah. Praying by yourself outside in the backyard and no one's bothering you, no one's sticking their hand in your face, showing you their phone, look at this picture, look at this text, look at this thing. I get you, it is more comfortable, but you definitely have more kavanah when you're home than when you're at shul.
Sometimes.
If you have little kids, you're not going to have kavanah that much. Right?
No,
you don't have a place to go.
I'm talking about really during the week when you're getting,
Yeah, but still, kids are around.
I mean, I go to B'nai Yitzhak in the morning, 8:15, and there's not a lot of people there, but still, the guy walking in and the breakfast, the thing, and the Hazan, who's praying, who's doing, and the guy, he didn't give him an aliyah. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on. You can't concentrate. You get there, I don't know. It's just.
I'm sure it must be like that for quite a few people.
I think it is.
But no, I'm talking about your point, AB, as well as Mark's point. So
yeah.
Let's look at my perspective. Okay, I'm getting up and going to work every day. This coronavirus, COVID-19, it didn't affect me the same way it affected most people. Okay, my effects of it are very, very different. If anything, I'm busier. Am I making more money? No, I'm definitely not making. 1 second, Jack. I'm not making more money, but I'm a lot busier, and I'm seeing the illness, and I'm seeing the death, and I'm seeing, things like that. But the truth is, when I come in the morning to pray, that's not on my mind at all, practically. My mind is someplace else because I'm going to work and I'm dealing with all the sickness. So I don't want to think about it when I'm praying. Like I'll insert certain things about about the general, populace and certain individuals when I'm in the Amidah, just at Rifa'inu. But until that point, because I deal with sickness all day, every day for the last how many decades, I've learned to block it out. I'm basically numb to it. So I'm praying in the morning. I'm not thinking about this. This is not something that is impacting me. I have to basically stop myself and go into the recesses of my mind to insert it when I get up to the Fa'inu, and I'll think about it again, at different various points throughout the Hamidah. But once the Hamidah is over, I've forgotten about it again. And I don't think about what we're going through until I get back to work, Because otherwise, I'm not a human being anymore. Then my entire life, my entire being, from waking to sleeping, okay, is only about problems. And I can't live like that. So I've taught myself how to block things out completely. So yeah, it may be affecting, you, Marky, in that sense, and probably most of you in that sense. And what AB is saying, that people are coming to you and, they're interrupting you and you can't have a concentrated prayer. But I think for each person, their unique circumstances are what makes their prayer better or worse that day in that location. That's all I want to say. Jack, what do you want to say?
Nothing.
Why?
I'm reading something now. I wanted to share with you guys. But I don't know how to share the screen.
Don't worry. I don't know how to do anything, and nobody here was able to show me, so it's okay.
I can make you into a.
I know how to share the screen when I'm the host, when I'm the boss. But when
I'll do it now. Make you a host. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
You should be able to share the screen anyways. Go to the bottom in the middle. It says share screen.
Okay, yeah, let's see. I remember reading this piece. But I don't know, you're going to read the whole thing, but Rav Kook's writing about Mishnah and Avot that says, Al tefrosh min hatzibur.
Right.
And Al tamin ba'atzmecha al yom motecha.
Yom motecha.
Yeah, oh, okay, I'm not reading. Hey, look, I want somebody to read this. Okay. But it's a very interesting piece. When I was once upon a time, I was involved in a minyan in Bet Torah, and there was somebody who just disappeared one day. He just disappeared. So I said, "What happened to you? I saw him at a party or something. Where are you?" He says, "Oh, well, I'm not into organized minyan, and I do it at home." And I remember this Mishnah and this piece that I one time read. If you guys want to read it, but it's a little bit. He talks about that there's the fact that the Sibur has a general direction that they're growing. And when you're putting too much trust in the Yahid, it's dangerous. Meaning, even if here and there you feel uplifted from a personal private tefillah at home, it's not a steady course. You can't assume that you're going to be able to keep it up forever. You need the piggybacking of the Sibur in order to properly, continuously grow. You hear what I'm saying?
Right, I'm listening.
Yeah.
So the question is, based upon what you're saying, that you're trying to say that you can never.
Here, look right here. I want to read 2 paragraphs. Rav Kook explained that it is the nature of individuals to change. People do not remain forever in the same state. Some advance in spiritual stature and holiness, while others regress. Thus, we should always have a healthy suspicion regarding individuals' goodness and motivations, even our own. Our community, on the other hand, is a community of faith. The purpose of its existence is to be faithful to our collective aspirations. While individuals may change, the community never changes. Interesting. Therefore, we should always strive to be connected to this absolute goodness. We should be somebody read that word for me. Circumspect. Okay, we should to and others, but the entire community, right, can always be trusted. The community as a whole. So,
but Jack,
who says he's not connected?
Jack, we were talking earlier before you got on, that we're all part of a community, and how a community, has been around and it's grown and it's developed, so nobody's saying remove themselves from the community. You are now equating community with minyan. I hear where you're coming from. I'm not, telling you it's a bad idea, God forbid. What I'm telling you, though, is that there are definitely people in this world, especially throughout the history of the Jewish world, where you would have individuals that would completely remove themselves that would not want to be involved with the Sibur. Sibur, not necessarily a group of people praying, but the Sibur meaning with the community. Count me out of any activities, count me out of tzedakot, count me out of welfare funds, count me out of schooling, count me out of, of fun activities. Just cut me out, Yes, a hermit.
Yeah, but the other assumption is that to be Poresh Min HaSibur is not going to Minyan either. That's neither the definition of Poresh Min HaSibur either. Harambam says Poresh Min HaSibur is when the Sibur is in a time of trouble and you don't try to help them. Not going to Minyan is not being Poresh Min HaSibur.
No, absolutely not.
So that's also, and also I think
I'm not talking minyan, not minyan. I'm just talking in general. If people feel too comfortable in this corona that I could do it all at home, I don't have to be with anybody, I don't have to go to parties, there's no more competition, it's great.
I don't think anybody feels that.
No, no one feels that way. Everybody wants to get to shul and wants to get to parties.
I don't think anybody feels that way, Jack. I think everybody misses being able to get together with others to a certain degree. I think what everybody is happy about is, thank God it's not as much as it was before. Because it reached a point for everybody where it got out of hand. Where there was too much getting together. There were too many parties, too many gatherings. Okay, let's take myself, for example. Okay, how many weddings do I go to? I can't even count the amount of weddings I go to a year. It's that many. Do I need to go to a wedding time and time again where there's upwards of 1,000 people every time? The people that are having smaller weddings are just as happy. We don't need giant weddings all the time. So that's part of what it is. We've reached a point where we've become, as a community, as individuals within the community, we've become so inflated in our minds, inflated in our outlook. It's time that somebody pulled a little air out. You have a big balloon and you have to let out some air every once in a while. And Borei Olam is doing that. I think he sees that this ga'ava, this hamas got so high and it's gotta get down again. Again, I don't know what Borei Olam's ideas are. I have absolutely no idea, but in my mind, I think that may have something to do with it. That we've gotten a little too out of hand. And enough people. Let me show you who's really the boss here.
Right. Maybe it'll change some people going back to shul. Maybe they'll say, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to, I'm going to pray with more.
Let me come pray with Kavanah. Let me pray with Kavanah. Let me not talk. Let me give tzedakah. Let me go. Let me go. For a few minute class after, which I wasn't doing before. Let me try to better myself. I don't think people want to get away from people, but I think people are happy that they don't have the pressure that they were having until now. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm just surmising.
People miss everybody. I think
for sure.
It does, just because you don't miss everybody doesn't mean you appreciate the time that you have now.
I don't know if Bitesh misses El Hadaf, but okay.
What do you mean? Bitesh didn't send El Hadaf the link for tonight.
I know. I can't believe it.
Where is he?
He's sleeping. Don't leave him alone.
Go on, Bitesh, call him up.
I'm gonna call him.
Maybe you better call him a speaker.
I was very moved tonight. I was reading with my kids Da'atu Medina from Chacham Chaim David Levi. The part on Hallel and Shechianu. It was very moving. I couldn't even, his perspective is amazing.
Yeah.
I loved what he did in that piece. You did that before, right? You've done that with the class.
We've touched upon it. We never did the whole thing. No, we did touch upon it. The funny thing is that for some reason, Rabbi Chaim David Levi didn't make that book available. It came, he published it. I think it was 1969, if I'm not mistaken, and he never republished it, and he did not allow to distribute it.
He didn't allow what?
He didn't allow anybody to republish the book or redistribute the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it published now?
No.
Is it on HebrewBooks.org?
Yeah,
No.
there's a few sections missing over there, from what I know.
I have a link here, but it's got like some double scans.
It has some double scans. It has some pages that are not so clear. It took me many years to find a copy. I have a very nice copy of it, and obviously it's not missing anything. I even have a letter from the rabbi in the book.
You didn't ask D. Jamel
There it
to
is,
find your
Jack.
copy, that's why.
The Jamal doesn't have a copy of it.
You think I can't get one, Joey? You saw what I showed you this week from Rabbi...
I didn't say you can't get. But now...
Tell them what I showed
Rabbi
you.
Mime and stuff?
Tell them what I showed you this week, Joey.
Hmm?
Tell them the gem that I showed you this week on WhatsApp.
Why? It's your show. You tell them about it.
What you got, Jack?
Tell them.
A letter from Rabbi Meir Waknin to Rabbi Haim David Shilush in 1948.
Wow.
I can't read it. It's a hard, I don't know, it's like a really hard script. But it's very interesting. Joey should read it to us.
Give me a printed copy of it, or whatever. Give me a nice photo of it.
If I email it to you now, you'll read it to them?
Not now. Go ahead.
It's fascinating. It's unbelievable material, no?
Send the picture. Let's go. Send it to him.
Okay, 1 second.
Hey, Mark, here's the datum dina.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Printed in Tel Aviv, 1969.
Wow. Amazing though. He felt it was the beginning of the Geulah.
Absolutely. Not only him, so many others.
So many others, and he was.
So many others. Listen, they were living miracles every day.
Amazing.
They saw the Yerushalayim that they grew up in, destroyed, okay, taken away from them, recaptured, and starting to be rebuilt. That's not Geulah. Look at David Batesh's background. That says it all. It's something really, really fantastic.
It's not the Mikdash. It's not the Mikdash.
No, it's not the Mikdash. But Jack, think of that little piece of wall that you see there. What was known prior as the Wailing Wall or the Western Wall or Kot al-Marabi was a fraction of the piece of wall you see there now. So that's
and it was a garbage dump.
It's a step towards the Beit HaMikdash. We're finally uncovering more and more, and every day they're uncovering more and more. We're getting there, slowly. Borei Olam knows when it's going to happen. We just have to wait it through. Anyway, I think we basically exhausted all the different topics for tonight, having to do with Eretz Israel, or Medinat Yisrael, rather. Where'd everybody go now? Everybody looks at I see Ezra. Ezra's falling asleep already.
No.
Joey Batesh is in his bed in Florida.
He's been there since 4 o'clock after...
Joey Batesh has been in there since, since 2003.
It's all good. By the way, I did say Al Anisim this morning in my Amidah.
That's nice.
Oh my gosh.
I said it last night, this morning, and this afternoon, and each one I use a different version of Al Anisim.
Did he say Shehayanu?
I do not say Shehayanu.
When you come up to Bonei Yerushalayim in the Amidah, and you really think how the city was rebuilt, it is a miracle.
It is a tremendous miracle.
My father tells a story how he went to Yerushalayim and was controlled by the Jordanians. It was 367 BC, and he had a camera, and he was taking pictures of the Kotel, and the Jordanian officer took the camera away. So my father said in Arabic, "What are you doing? Give it back to me." My dad took it back and walked away.
Does he have the pictures? Do you have the pictures from there or
I
no?
doubt it.
Yeah, you can find the roll of film someplace.
I'm sure.
Probably still undeveloped.
Probably. I mean, they probably threw it out years ago. If anything.
You never know.
I don't know.
Basements collect a lot of things.
We don't have basements.
Oh, Florida doesn't have basements?
We have garages. No.
Glenn's gone.
Old. We may have it in the warehouse somewhere. The store. Empty storage bins.
Cheerio. Anyway. All right, Jack, you send it for the future, and we'll work on deciphering it, okay?
Okay, I'm going to send it. Okay, I'm in the middle of making a PDF out of it right now.
No problem.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. All right, any other questions, or we'll go for tonight?
So Joe, today in the chat we asked you if you can start to give us some audio on the Tefillah and explanations.
Yeah, I want to really brainstorm that with a couple of you at least to figure out what angle to take. I think it's a very good idea. I think it should be done. But you're saying you want to do things, in a minute or two, and that becomes a lot more difficult.
No, the minute or two referred to how we pronounce words and how we don't pronounce words.
This morning, unfortunately, was really atrocious. It hurt me a lot. And I said what I had to say, on the chat. I don't want to
pause this so you can make your comments?
What's that?
Want me to pause for a minute? You can make your comments?
No, I don't want to repeat it. I don't want to get to my comments right now. It bothered me a lot, the way it was. And I know I'm not going to get a response to the very kind letter that I wrote. Okay? But I will make copies of my letter and send it to every, board member, just so they could hear me and, and realize where I'm coming from. Not that they don't know already. Because I think it's very, very important, because it really will bode in a very negative way on our community going forward, especially if this is recorded and people are going to hear it in the future. It's really not right. If the guy does not know how to read properly, don't read. Don't hazard. Don't sing. We don't want to hear you. Either do it right or don't do it at all. I think it's very, very important. And just heads up, tomorrow morning's Minhag of the Week. It's all about pronouncing the Aleph Bet.
You did that already.
No, I didn't.
On YouTube, you have you repeating the Aleph Bet, no?
That's not the same video.
Uh-huh.
So I did what you see on YouTube, as part of our uploads is one thing, and what's coming out from SCA Minhag of the Week is a different recording. And obviously it's going to hit a wider audience. And since this is the time when people are all doing their learning at home via computer, so I felt this is the right time to do it, to release that. And
I
that's
found the
it.
screen over here. Hit the letter. There it is. He wants to see it. You see?
Of course I see. I saw it before.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yom Aleph de Hanukkah, yeah.
You think he's going
Oh, you know how to read that?
What's that?
It's like
You know
a
how to
hard
read this
one.
language?
I read this language called Hebrew.
No, it's a funny Hebrew. What is this? Come on, let's see if you could read the first few lines.
I don't have to. I read the first line when Jack sent it to me.
Okay.
You can't make out anything, David. If you look at the top line, okay, you see one dot and a second dot and a third dot and then a fourth dot, don't you?
Yeah.
You see those dots? So the first dot, what'd you do?
Okay, good.
The first dot is on the letter Aleph, okay? It's telling you Yom Aleph de Hanukkah. And then look what he puts you. Dot, then a dot and a dot. The first dot is on a tav, tihiyeh. The second dot is on the shin, shinat. And then the last dot is on the hayat of the word hirut. Tihiyeh, shinat, hirut. Tav, shin, hayat. 1948. Hanukkah of 1948 is when he wrote this letter. Tihiyeh, shinat, hirut. Let this be the year of freedom. Beautiful. That's the way he started his letter, Rabbi Watnin, and he wrote it, as you see on the second line, okay, to Hacham David. Well, okay, see the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th and 8th word is David Shelush. Okay, to his son-in-law. So he'll send it to me. I'll print it. I'll have to transcribe the whole thing. It'll take some time because, yes, it's not a handwriting that I'm used to.
It's a hard one, right?
I have to, it's not it's hard or not hard. Each individual had their own style. The same way if you look at, anybody's penmanship in any language, that they write certain letters a certain way or they connect certain letters a certain way. So
Right.
This is something that I'm going to have to decipher.
Like look at the tav over here in Herut. It's just a line,
Right, because the end of the world, that's the thing about when you deal with Nus Elam. Nus Elam had many parallels to Arabic, in that in Arabic, most of the letters have three forms: the form for the beginning of the word, the form for the middle of the word, and the form for the end of the word. And in many cases, you'll find that in Nus Elam as well. And a lot of times, though, that one-liner, as is shown, that tab over there, could also be a kof, or it could be a nun sofit. Okay,
Right.
but we know already now that if you see that line at the end of the word from his writing, from the word prior to it, you also see it. Okay, so we know it's shinat and we know it's hirut, but we know his taf at the beginning of the word. We see that from the word before that. Okay,
Right.
It's that half a head with a squiggly and down. Okay, and then you see it again on the word after hirut. Okay, so we'll get to it. We'll
Okay.
work on it.
Where did you get this letter, Jackie?
No, you can't ask me that in public. What are you crazy?
Yes, he's asking you in public, and you can, and he did, and he will, and you will answer as well.
No, I won't.
No, you won't.
Joe, you don't
Different time.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Your uncle asked you a question.
Listen, but I plead the fifth. That's it.
Two
I can
uncles.
pause it for a second if you want to answer.
We'll talk.
All right. In any case, all right, guys. It's been real. Hopefully, I can figure out the Zoom thing a little bit better, and we can do it in a more effective manner next time, and we'll have actual text to go with. All right.
Chazak Baruch.
Everybody.
Baruch. Great seeing everybody. Be well.
Absolutely, yeah. You too,
Good
Mr.
night,
Lapid.
everybody. Good night, Joey.
Hi,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Joey Batesh, go to sleep. Say hello to Bonnie.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, boys.
All right, everybody.
Good
Take
night,
care.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.